Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So here I want to cover all the best companions you should be using as a DPS. I'll be running through a list of alternatives you can use because the prices will undoubtedly vary and your budget will also differ. When I say one particular companion is the best, then that becomes extremely expensive because everybody wants it and it's not that accessible. So we're going to start things off with our summoned companion. What you want to have is your active companion. Well, I don't recommend having an augment companion. Those are ones like the Winter Fox, which would just give you these statistics. The reason is because in the current balance of things, the amount of stats that these companions give you does not make up for the effectiveness that the companion can do. However, when you're in mid-game and have a mythic combat enchantment, an augment can be somewhat useful to get the ratings you need. But very quickly, as soon as you get some gear, which is most of the stepping stone gear that has ratings you need of those stats, you're going to end up with far more than you can possibly fit in your build, and thus an augment is out the window. So we look at striker companions. Now I have tested hundreds of these. You can see my document here and it's linked in the video description below. It's linked to all the videos, you just have to find it there. There's a ton of useful links there as well. Now I've highlighted in bold the recommended ones. I would recommend you just run the Batiri or ideally the Black Death Scorpion, but the Scorpion is really expensive, really exclusive, so you may as well just run with the Batiri. The reason is because his damage is pretty solid, he's a ranged companion, and the bonus he provides you is also very useful. That 11% against bosses. We'll cover what companions you want for what bonuses in just a sec. But there are of course alternatives and some that are maybe slightly better. Don't get caught out with the Blaspheme Assassin looking like it's the best at 48,000. It is not. It is only that good when you're in a fight where the companion never dies and the boss never disappears. When the boss is just sitting there like a big HP pool, then the Blaspheme Assassin can rack up her bleed stacks and then output that much damage. Normally, she will fall behind all of these other ones because the boss phases, she dies, resets her bleeds, etc. Honey Badger, similar issue. Has to be at like 90% HP or more in order to output that damage, and as soon as it's not, it just falls behind. Tomb Spider is a melee companion, will probably die a bit more. Greenscale Bowman, an excellent choice, but it's only slightly above the Batiri. So I would just go save yourself the extra tokens and run with the Batiri. You could look at AoE damage companions, and the only real good ones is Regis and Shadowkai Witch. The rest of them are kind of meh. The damage they output is pretty terrible compared to what you can do as a player, so just run a single target companion in AoE and just kill everything yourself and you won't notice any difference there. You may have your own selection of companions and you can look here of which ones you have already, which one you should be using as summoned. You can see the DPS here and that's how you would rank them. But now we move to companion equip bonuses. These are the bonuses you want to slot in here. You have 5 different slots. Keep in mind, not all the slots are the same. You have 1 defensive slot, you have 1 offensive slot, and 1 utility slot. And then you have 2 universal slots. You can put anything in there. Now each companion has a particular slot that it can go in. Like Minsk can only go in defense. The Knight can only go in offense. Same with the Batiri, only offense. Tamed Raptor, only offense. And the Alchemist, offense or utility. So you're limited based on what companions you can use based on these slots. So be very careful with that. Again, 1 defense, 1 offense, 1 utility, and 2 universal. So the best ones I would recommend are, the Batiri, the Knight, Tamed Raptor, Minsk, and then a utility bonus here. So I would go with the Alchemist as like the cheapest option, but there are alternatives. Now this is the general setup that every damage dealer uses within boss fights. And boss fights is where your damage matters. Outside of a boss fight, you could have 10% less damage, just speeding up enemies, and you really won't notice the difference. You're not trying to min-max killing the enemies, the ad groups, when it doesn't really matter. There's no damage check, there's no time limitation. And that is why I would prioritize your companions to get your single target damage up. But we can go to the entire list, and there's a lot of different options, and I've ranked them based on what is best to use. Now, to begin with, we start with like the Tamed Raptor. That's totally the best because the sheer amount of stats, 18.75% power, which is also one of your main stats to provide you with damage. It's just an insane bonus. Healers will also make use of that. And keep in mind, you will only gain the full benefit when everybody else in your party is using it. So that's more orientated towards endgame. When you're just running through random queues, you might not run into many people who are using that. So maybe you want to use something else if you're just running public queue content with randoms. But then, yes, we have the Batiri, and there are a lot of other companions there as well with unique bonuses against certain enemy types, like this one against the dragons, against fey creatures, and so on. There is also the Wild Hunt Rider, but it's only good for the rogue. The reason is because it only has a 10% chance to trigger on your encounter power use. And yes, it's a bit of a bug, but you have a certain power on the rogue which counts as an encounter power every time it hits, which is Path of Blades. It's going to hit 22 times or 21 times if you use from stealth, and each time that hits it has the 10% chance to trigger this. So you can pretty much have this up all the time on the rogue, but again, it's only good for the rogue. No other class can do that. Then there's Minsk. It's a damage bonus. The Knight, another damage bonus. But then you have all these ones with power bonus. And the reason I've set them like this is because your priority as a damage dealer is to focus on the stats which is going to give you damage. Your priority is power, then combat advantage, then crit strike and crit severity, doesn't matter between the two, and lastly accuracy. However, you also want to consider things that are going to give you damage bonuses, like the Batiri, like the Minsk, and like the Neverwinter Knight. You want to usually prioritize those over stats if they're at the same level. So you would take the Knight over the Baby Deep Crow because they're both going to give 7.5%, and it's harder to get damage bonuses, so the Knight would be more valuable, causing you to deal more damage. But then from the damage bonuses, you're going to stats, and also if something is going to give you a ton of stats like the Raptor, it's better versus something that's going to give you 7.5%. But again, be aware, it can be easier to get to the maximum of that stat. The maximum is 90%, so there's no point once you're at that green 90% to get more of it. There would be no point slotting in companions here to give me critical severity because it's already at max. So just be aware of that, and once you are at max, then you need to skip down the rankings here. If you don't need power, you need to skip past all those power companions. You can see which ones I have highlighted in bold. I have the Tamed Raptor, Batiri, Minsk, the Neverwinter Knight, the Golden Cat, and then to go in your utility slot, I would run the Alchemist, the Book Imp, and the Dark Dealer. Again, you're limited on what slots you have available, and you need that utility one. So the Golden Cat is a good option there. So is the Alchemist, Book Imp, and Dark Dealer. Just they're not as good because they give accuracy. But if again you have like too much combat advantage, you don't need the Golden Cat, then you might run the Alchemist. If you don't need the crit strike because you're at 90% along with the combat advantage, then you would go to like the Book Imp and get the combat advantage plus accuracy. It's all a balancing act depending on your stats. I can't just tell you this and this and this is best because I don't know what gear level you're at. When you are min-maxing and have like all the best gear, then I can showcase a build of what you would use. But before you have that gear, it can be better to use alternatives. Again, just prioritize the order of the stats that are going to give you the best damage and the damage bonuses. But ultimately, this is the entire table here, going all the way down here to like Jarlaxle with the accuracy bonus. There is no point trying to get a companion bonus that's going to give you some offensive stats and some defensive stats. You want to focus on the ones that are just giving you your offensive stats for more damage. A defensive stat bonus is going to be an absolutely minuscule addition to your survivability. You won't even notice it. Trust me. If something's going to kill you, it's usually going to kill you regardless if you have plus or minus 10% extra defensive stats. You just gotta use your movement and get out of the way, or it's up to the healer to heal you through a damage over time, a thing that you can't avoid. Now this entire table is again linked to that document. You can view it yourself here. And there is, on a last note, the Valenhas Elite Soldier, which I have not tested yet. I will do so in an upcoming video. You can look out for that. But it does give a 22.5% damage bonus versus Avernus Devils. I want to check, where is that actually useful? I assume only in the Avernus zone, beating up enemies doing your hunts, and thus it wouldn't really be useful in most content, but it's interesting and it's there. There is also the Feral Raptor, which can give you up to 18.75% maximum awareness. That is at least a decent survivability boost for just one companion slot. And if you have this and you are in a party where everybody can use this, I would recommend it if you are running particularly hard content where you might die and you're on the borderline edge of dying and not dying to certain mechanics, like Tar the Mad Mage or Zariel, so on. Those trials usually have those things. But otherwise, you're pretty much going glass cannon and dealing as much damage as you can. To avoid damage, you just move your ass and use your immunity frames. But hopefully this helps some of you out there. Again, just a quick conclusion. Your summoned companion, I would just recommend running the Batiri. You want him for the bonus here anyway, and for your equip bonuses, you will want to go for Minsk, Batiri, Knight, Raptor, and like Alchemist. Or you could have the Golden Cat here, or as we mentioned, other alternatives that go in that utility slot that give stats for your damage. Right now, this is generally what most damage dealers use, these 4 companions, and this utility one generally varies. If you're just beating up groups of enemies, you will switch out Batiri and you will switch out the Minsk to something else that would give you stats. So you'd want to find one that would go in defense. So you look through here and you find the Phase Spider. That goes in defense, combat advantage, crit strike. Very nice. You need another one that goes in offense if you miss power because you're just running at randoms and in quest zone without a party group with raptors, you'd run the Deep Core Hatchling or the Alpha Compy. So with that said, a special thank you again to all these channel members for their added support. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.